this demo is going to go over some masking, but also motion tracking to a point or an object in a scene. So this is a video I did last year, and what happens is you can see my son walking across, and what I did was I just created a simple mask here so that when he walks by, his body essentially exposes the text that has been added in there. I also did a little fake shadow down at the bottom, which is pretty easy. I'm not going to go over that in the tutorial, but it really just involves you duplicating the text, flipping it, so it mirrors, and then maybe make it a little bit blurry and softer. So not real hard. I'm not going to go through it on this demo, but you can probably figure it out if you know After Effects basics. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little more complicated. So in this shot, I actually used a tripod, but in the new shot that I'm going to do this with, we are going to use footage that moves. So I will show you what our end result is going to be. And so this one's already done, and we're just going to basically make it again. All right, and what happens here is you're going to see as this scene rolls through, my camera starts moving, and then my actor walks in, Mr. Jenner, and he exposes my text, which you can see there. And that is actually tracking to a point in the background, which I can tell you exactly what point. It's this little dot on the top of the marker there, because that didn't get covered up by his head at any point. I could have tracked anything higher, and that would have probably worked as well. So we're going to go through how to do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create a new comp, and I'm going to call this comp 2. All right, and in comp 2, we're going to take our video and bring it down. And I'm just going to do this for the whole thing. So one thing I want to do here is I'm going to double click on that clip, and this is going to give me the ability to use tracker. So we're going to say we want to track motion, and you can see right away we have this little point that pops up right there, track point 1. So what I'm going to do is there's actually 2 parts to this, or 3 parts to it. There's a bigger box, a smaller box, and then a point. So when I kind of make that a little bit bigger, and then I click inside that inner box, and I'm going to bring this up to the top of that marker. So it's kind of weird because you're zooming in, and I'm just going to place that at the top. Bam. And now I'm going to back out, and at this point, I'm going to make a new null object. And I'm going to call this null object target. Right. Next thing I'm going to do, and so what happened here was, you can see I was tracking my point, but I'm actually going to put my plate at the beginning and remove that to the place that it needs to be. So if you for instance, you fast forward through a video, or your plan's later on, you want to move it at that beginning spot because you want to track everything after. Okay, at this point, we're going to say edit target, and we're going to say we want the target to be that target layer. Hit OK. And now what I'm going to do is hit this play button. Okay, and what's going to happen here is this tracker, this track point 1, is tracking to that marker right there. So the reason I picked that is because I watched the video before, and I noticed that Genderset just barely clears it. So I don't want to use something that would be covered up. I could, but I'd have to then go and manually fix some stuff up. Okay. You also have the ability to do options here. So, like for instance, confidence, which is 80%. That means if it's not sure, if it's less than 80% sure, then it would stop, and you'd have to fix those points. So, and you would manually essentially create those. Okay. Now it's good. So I'm actually going to hit apply, and I'm going to say X and Y. You could actually do X or Y. If it was a 3D layer, I believe you can do X, Y, and Z. But I'm going to hit OK. And you're going to see all these points that this created. So I'm going to hit P for position. And you're also going to see that my target now has position points. Okay, I'm going to close down my original video layer. And here I'm going to go and create a new null object. And we're going to call this controller. So basically the controller we're going to link up to our target, but in a very unique way. So we're going to hit controller. And then what I'm going to do is hit P for position on my target. I'm going to hit P for position on my controller. Now on my controller, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to option click on position stopwatch, and I'm going to drag out that pick whip that pops up and pick whip it to my position for target. So now that controller is going to do everything that target does. All right. So at this point, I'm going to create my text. So I'm going to go in, and I'm going to place it where I want it. So again, I'm kind of just creating the same thing. Oops, rule 66, don't and then, so what I did was I made this a little bit fancier, and I went ahead and just selected chunks of text, and I was like, okay, on this one, I want this one to be a little bit closer, right? And I want the text to be bigger, and I want it to be even with that, so I'm going to drop that down. Okay. And so you could edit everything and anything that you need to at this point. Again, my goal is to kind of make the text the same length across the board there. And then I'm just using my leading here to bump everything up. Okay, if it's a little bit imperfect, I'll adjust it. Okay, I'm not going to get crazy obsessive about it at this point, but I could. And then I'm going to slide that up. Okay, so it looks pretty good. All right, then this text I'm going to make a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to hit my V for my arrow, down shift, so that kind of blows up and stays uniform. Okay, and I put it in the left side here. It doesn't really need to be there, but you can kind of decide where you want it to be. And I'm also going to, real quick, we're going to pick whip this rule text to the controller. So whatever the controller does, it's going to do as well. So now if you watch this, now go ahead and hit play, and you're going to see as that camera starts moving, my text is also moving. And it's staying even with that point. Okay, now the bad thing is you can see it goes off screen, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to say, well, at this point, it still needs to be on screen, so I'm going to go ahead and move it up to about there, so that when Jenner passes through, that text would then be fully exposed, and it would kind of end up in the corner. All right, so we're not quite done yet, because we do have the tracking, and that's good. You could do some cool stuff with that. Okay, the other thing I want to do is some masking. So what we're going to do here is a new way of masking potentially. I'm going to click off my layers, and I'm going to put my playhead right when Jenner starts popping into the scene, and a little bit back. Okay, and I'm going to get my pen tool, and I'm going to start basically just pen tooling around Mr. Jenner's back here. Okay, and this is on a separate layer. This is not on like a new layer. Now, I like to do this where I make this thing super long, so if it moves, I don't have any issues. You'll kind of see why. There may be some other ways to do that. I just like what I like to do. So, now we're going to say, all right, track matte, alpha. Okay, now I don't see. So basically what I did was I set my rule text that it was an alpha track matte to shape layer, meaning the shape layer controls when this is being seen. So now I'm going to go into my mask. So we could even call this mask. And I'm going to go into my contents, and I'm going to go into my transform. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keyframe my shape, my path, and then also my position. So okay, at that point, that looks good. All right, we'll say by the time it gets here, all right, I'm going to go ahead and let's see if we can get this to work. I'm going to use my V. I'm going to move that thing in. Now, if I need to adjust this, what I'm going to do here is I would click on shape, and then I can go in with my arrow, and I can adjust the points. You can see like here, if that was an issue. Okay, I'm not going to be super precise. You should be, okay, just for time of demo. All right, and you can see that's keyframing all these changes. So bam, okay, I want that. All right. Oops, okay, mask. All right, go ahead and move up. And then I'll click on shape. Now again, you could go keyframe by keyframe on this. Like I said, I'm being a little bit quick for demo's sake. And if it's not perfect right now, you can blame me for timing. There we go. That should do it. So let's see how that looks. Okay, as he walks in, okay, he starts exposing that text. Took a second to catch up there, and that looks great. So one last thing you can do to make this look a little bit like just more perfect is you can go into enable blur, and you can blur your mask so that when that thing moves in, it's a little bit softer, and you won't really see any changes. So now I'll say like that's the end of my video. I'm gonna hit N for to end my workspace, and let's go ahead and play this.
Go ahead.
And so maybe I find some Star Wars music in here or something, but there is my rule. And that is it.